Today I wanted to walk through the process of making this painting that I will be submitting to Cut and Paste magazine in hopes of being accepted to their December catalog. The theme for the next issue of the magazine is At Home. These are the colors that they're focusing on that they want us to be inspired by, and these are the keywords that they want us to be inspired by. It's supposed to be really cozy, really warm. So for this first painting, I did go very literal with the At Home little theme, and I painted a little summer cottage. The first thing I did was find a reference photo, so I went into Google and I typed in summer cottage, and this is what came up. Because I didn't want to plagiarize this reference photo and I needed to make a thumbnail sketch, I did take this photo into Procreate and I changed a couple of things. So I did flip the orientation, I extended some of the little fencing, I did move the fence line up, and I also changed the walkway. I'm also using different colors for this painting so that it is completely different, and the actual painting does look very different from the reference photo, which I'm very glad for. Once I was done with the thumbnail sketch, I then traced a loose outline onto my sheet of paper so that I could start painting. The painting process you're seeing here is very, very crunched. There's only about 7 minutes of painting process in this video, but this took me 3 hours with no breaks to start to finish just the painting process. So I started with the background, I started filling all the green areas, and then I went back and forth between filling in the base layers and adding details. I normally add all of the base color or most of the base color, and then I'll start building up to the details just so that they don't get lost over time. And later on you'll see I went in with the grass and I made a little bit of a grass texture, and then I smudged it out and then added more grass texture. I do that because I think that it helps create a little bit more depth to it. I don't usually have a sketch on the paper that I'm following, but because I knew that I'm not very good at painting buildings just without a sketch, that I would need that. So that's why I have this base sketch here. I don't normally do a sketch, but I'm not good at architecture. I'm pretty good at landscapes, but I cannot freehand architecture for the life of me. Because of the underdrawing that I have here, I kind of felt like I was filling in a little coloring book page, which in itself felt kind of like a challenge because I found myself thinking that the colors for everything was filled in, so there was nothing else to do. But then I also would look at it and know it needs more detail. All of the color is blocked out, but there's no detail. So I was trying to add detail, and especially on that like floral bush thing that you can see, I kept adding and adding and adding to it, and it just was not working how I wanted it to. So in the very end, you'll see I add a ton of flowers, or little dots that represent flowers, and I like it better that way, but I think I would have liked it more if the bush was just like a normal bush that I knew how to paint. If I had any advice to give to anyone who's getting into gouache or is new to painting, it would be to work dark to light and background to foreground. You might be able to see it some when I'm painting the trees and the roof, but I started with a dark brown for the trees, and then I added a lighter color brown to have the highlights of the bark. And then for the roof, I had like that really deep dark burgundy red, and then I added lighter colors on top to show the shingles and highlights. Now if we're talking working background to foreground, you can see I have a thin wash of green over the whole background, and now I'm working up towards the foreground with the leaves and the highlights on the shingles and more highlights on the leaves. I'm building up those layers so that they stand out a little bit more than just the solid green wash in the background. I would also recommend that the closer something is to the foreground, the more detail that you should add, whereas the further away something is and the more in the background it is, the less detail it should have. Because there's really not that much else to say about this painting process, it's really just something that you have to watch, I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent about how I absolutely refused to say that I was a painter for a lot of years. I grew up hating painting, which is so funny to me now because that is exclusively what I do, and it's also funny looking back because that was my main hobby, was to paint. Now that I am older and I have honed in on my skill level some, I can understand that the reason why I did not like painting had nothing to do with me not liking painting. and everything to do with my ideas of perfection and my own artwork. I didn't like painting because I wasn't good at using acrylic on canvas. I didn't like the results I was getting. I didn't like that my lines weren't clean and crisp. And in my head, I thought that lines had to be clean and crisp and exact and perfect. Don't get me wrong, I loved taking my art classes in high school. I loved my art teacher. I thought it was super fun to make portfolios, but I didn't fall in love with painting until I no longer was in any courses that required me to paint. I think part of this is because paintings that are done on canvas are a lot more valued in an academic setting than paintings that are done on paper. Because of this, we didn't really study gouache in high school. It was described to me as something sort of like watercolor, but we didn't focus on it the way that we did with acrylic paintings and collage and the other things that you do in high school art class. My first experience using gouache wasn't until my senior year of high school, and even then I didn't really start using it until I was well into college. Gouache opened up a lot of opportunities for me in ways that using acrylics or oil paintings never did. Yes, my acrylic and oil paintings did do well in competitions in high school. However, they did not get me commissions or the opportunity to illustrate a children's book or do things for galleries and be published in magazines and have dual exhibits and get into a show that's coming up for a state fair. They never did that for me. I think part of the reason why my gouache art does better for me than my oil and acrylic paintings did is because I actually enjoy the process of making them. Even when I'm struggling through them, I care about what I'm making. And I can still be a perfectionist, but I feel like perfection is a lot more achievable with gouache because it's a lot more forgiving than acrylic on canvas. With gouache being more forgiving, I don't have to worry as much, and I can truly just sit back and trust the process and know that yes, there's going to be an ugly stage, but it's going to turn out okay, and it's going to look how I want in the end, instead of having to sit through and struggle up until the end and still not liking what I've made. So, that is my tangent. I'm just adding the final little florals here, and then the painting is done. So, I hope that you enjoyed this video. Fingers crossed that this gets accepted into the Cut and Paste magazine, and if not, I will likely be selling prints of it on my Etsy. So, hope you have a great day, and I will see you later. Bye.